How connected do you feel to the earth element? Do you feel really grounded and stable, or do you feel like the energy is more scattered and ungrounded? Now, working with the earth element in both our mundane and our magical lives can help us feel more present, help us feel more connected to the universe, and help us hone our magical abilities and gifts as we expand upwards from the roots. So, in today's episode, I will be sharing with you 11 different ways that you can connect to the earth element in both your daily life and your magical practice. So, merry meet. I'm Aislin. This is Ask Aislin, and I am here today talking all about the earth element. Okay, so we're going to dive right in. There's a lot to talk about today, but if you are with us live, you can leave questions and comments in the chat, and there will be a Q&A at the end. I'll answer all of those. All right, so let's just talk a moment about the earth element before I dive into the 11 different practices that you can use. So, the earth element is all about the physical. It helps us feel present, it helps us feel grounded and centered. It's considered a feminine and a receptive energy. And in a magical circle, it's typically placed in the north of the circle, though sometimes it could be placed in other directions depending on the tradition. But usually the north is the most usual place that people place it. Now, in the west, the earth element is represented by the color green, and some other correspondences that you also might consider when you're working with the earth element is the season is typically associated, the season associated with the earth element is usually winter, the time of day, midnight. Astrological signs, Taurus, Virgo, and Capricorn, which means when we're in those periods of time, so the seasons of Taurus, Virgo, and Capricorn were in that earth energy to begin with. But you can also look at planetary hours as well and connect those to the planets that are connected to those signs. Venus, Mercury, and Saturn. And so, if you do any spell work or rituals in the planetary hours of Venus, Mercury, or Saturn, you're also able to connect to the earth element. So let us dive in. Actually, a few more things before we dive into the first idea and what practice to use. The earth element is also represented by stones, crystals, coins, salt, and also by the peyton or the pentacle. So we typically call it a peyton when spelled Peyton when it's placed on an altar. I'm not sure if you're going to be able to see this one very well. I guess you can kind of see the star in it. So this would be a typical peyton. Most of the time, they in modern days they're usually made of wood. In the past, they might have been made of wax because it was something that could be thrown into a fire and could be the evidence of the ritual or the magical working could be um, gotten rid of that way. So the peyton can be placed on the altar in order to represent earth, just the way we would place a cauldron or a chalice to represent water and a candle for fire and perhaps incense for air. So you can use the peyton, and we will talk in one of our practices that you can use as building an earth altar. So we will talk a little bit more about what to place on an earth altar, including the peyton. Okay, so what do we do if we want to work with the earth element? And just taking a moment to say hi to those who are joining us. Um, okay, so first practice is grounding, and this is one that we all kind of know we need grounding, but sometimes we don't always do it, and sometimes we don't know how to do it. So we will talk about that now. So, grounding is so important for us as witches, yet, so often we set our sights on those kind of more ascended places in our spiritual journey, those places that we feel can get us to our higher magical and spiritual goals. But the reality is that spiritual ascension and that idea of spiritually ascending, it is influenced by the Abrahamic religions, where there's this idea that we have to get out and break out of the kind of the shackles of the world in order to find spirituality, in order to find God, in order to find our own elevation. So this kind of idea of elevating, while there is truth to it, absolutely, for us as witches, what it does is it forces us to forget about the most important aspect that happens first, which is grounding down. But to back up a bit and just explain the idea of ascending from the Abrahamic religions perspective, it was an idea and a way to eradicate the goddess who is typically found within the earth. So if you look at many of our mythologies throughout cultures, most of the time it's the god who is in the sky, and it's the goddess who is in the earth. So by making the practices of ascension seem as though we have to lift up and out of this world in order to receive them, what we've effectively done is escaped the goddess, escaped the earthly realm that she's in, escaped the evils of the earth, right? But we as witches know that that is not not the case at all. So as witches, it's important for us to remember that the first step of ascension is actually to ground down. It's going down into the earth. Working with the earth element and grounding, therefore, is key here. So whether that is the red clay of the earth, or the green floor of the forest, or the yellow sand of the beach, finding some way to ground down into the earth is key and important to us before we ascend. So one thing that you can do is the grounding tree meditation. And it is a meditation that I recommend that people try before ritual, before magical workings, before spell work, and especially to try it if you find that you are have a very difficult time grounding, or if you find that you're kind of scattered, if you find that you're not present, you find it hard to center during ritual. Grounding tree meditation can very much help you. So during the grounding tree meditation, it's very simple. You just imagine roots descending down from your body, whatever part of your body is touching the earth, whether you're standing and it's your feet, or you're sitting and it's your seat, or you're lying down, it's your back and the whole backside of your body. You just imagine those roots grounding down into the earth. And sometimes what I like to do is imagine myself sitting with my back against an oak tree or some kind of a sturdy tree. And then as my roots ground down into the earth, they connect to the roots of that tree. And then I begin to breathe in and out with that tree. So that is one way to do the grounding tree meditation. There's a lot of variations on it. You can Google it or search on YouTube, and you'll find many people leading you through it. If you are in our Shadow Seekers membership, we have a version of the grounding tree meditation in the membership, in the alignment practices section. And if you're in Demystifying Witchcraft, our Witchcraft course, you'll also find a version of it there. Now, another thing that you can do is earthing. So earthing is typically done, shouldn't say typically, it's done when we take our shoes off and preferably our socks off, and we really get our feet into the earth, whatever that means, whether it's grass or it's sand or it's dirt. And you could even practice grounding in your house by walking barefoot more often than you wear your shoes. What grounding does is it connects us more to the earth energy below us. People find that it can relieve some of their scattered energy. It can relieve some of their anxiety as well. So definitely try that. The more that you can walk barefoot, the better when it comes to grounding down with the earth element. Okay, so the next thing that we can try is to pay attention to our physical body. So this is number two. Practice number two is really paying attention to the physical body. So as witches, we are, like I mentioned earlier, we're often looking for this kind of ascension, this connection out to the universe, outside of us, and what we sometimes forget is that in order to really be healthy spiritually, we need to first be healthy physically. So the body always comes first. And it is really one of the main reasons that I started the group Body, Mind, Witchcraft in the first place, was to teach some of these physical practices that can go along with expanding our awareness of the universe around us and our spiritual growth. So what can we do? How can we connect to the earth element through the body? Well, the earth element is all about our health. So you really want to look at how your health is. What about the foods that you eat? So one thing you can try is to eat through the seasons. So eating cleaner food. So for example, I know that organic food is very expensive and food just seems to be going up in price constantly. But one tip that you can use if you want to eat organic but you can't afford to eat everything organic is look for the Dirty Dozen list online. Just Google it, the Dirty Dozen list. and it will list off 12 fruits and vegetables that are considered quite full of pesticides and toxins. And you then have this list of items. If you wanted to eat those foods, get those foods organic. And then there is another list. It's called the Clean, I think it's called the Clean 13 or the Clean 14 or something like that. And it lists all the foods that are typically have a much lower toxic load or toxin load. And so if you can't afford to eat everything organic, you'll know that those lists, the foods that are on the list, the Clean 14, will be fairly clean and fairly free of toxins, and you can eat those non-organic foods. So that's one thing. Another way to eat more health, not I shouldn't even say healthy, but to eat more connected to the earth is to eat with the seasons. And one way to do that is to go to the grocery store and get the things that are on sale in the produce department, because usually what's on sale in the produce department is what's in season for your area. Also, purchasing food from local farmers markets if you can, and purchasing more locally will ensure that you're eating within the season. Then another thing, and this one's very important to me, and something I got really into a few years ago, is really looking at your personal products in your home. So making sure that those products are as low or free of toxins as you can, and you'll actually be kind of alarmed if you start going through your makeup and your personal care products to see exactly what is in those products. So what I recommend people do is check the EWG website. That's the Environmental Working Group. And they have a place on the website where you can put a product in and it will rate it based on the toxic load or toxin load that it has. And so when I did this a few years ago, I ended up throwing out most of what I had, even though for a lot of it, it was stuff that I'd even bought at Sprouts or Whole Foods, and it looks like it's pretty natural, but there are still a lot of toxins in it. So you can really go down, really down the rabbit hole with this one, and go deep into it, and kind of see what's in all of your products. But what I recommend is take a few, like take 5 that you use the most often, and just research them and just see what's in them, and then just see if there are alternatives that you can find that have less toxins. And what you will find is that you may start to feel better. Like, so if you have kind of ills or aches and pains or just kind of malaise or low energy. And when people actually go through and they kind of clear out the toxins in their home, they will actually find that they feel so much better, because the toxins are, it's a cumulative effect. And so while one may not affect us very much, and maybe 2 won't, or 3, but when we compound them, and there's so many things that are around us that have toxins in them, we will begin to suffer from that toxin load. So anyway, searching for the EWG website, very good. And then another thing, another way to take care of your body is through movement, and we will be talking about that at the end. Is another practice, but just making sure that you're moving and you're healthy in that respect. Okay, so if anybody's here live, make sure to leave questions and comments, and I will definitely be answering those at the end. Okay, so number 3, the third practice, follow the cycles of the wheel of the year. So as witches, if you've never actually practiced and followed the full 8 Sabbats of the wheel, I highly recommend it. And you're at the perfect time to start this too, because Ostara is coming up in about a month, and that is the beginning of the astrological new year. So we turn over when we enter Aries season, the astrological year begins. Ostara, or spring equinox, as the start of spring, is also a great time to kind of start anew, find more balance in your life. So begin to observe the full 8 Sabbats. Now, if you don't know a lot about Sabbats, you can go to our Body Mind Witchcraft YouTube channel, and we have videos on all of them there. But I will be, in a few weeks, I will be doing a new episode on spring equinox or Ostara. You can also, to really get into the energy of the wheel, you can read the story of the goddess and the wheel of the year. So this is a story that tells about the form that the goddess takes as she progresses through the wheel. So at Yule, she gives birth to the sun god, and then at Imbolc, he's kind of like he's growing, right? He's growing into who will become her consort at Beltane. And the whole story tells us about the progression of the goddess and the god as they go through the cycles. And so what we can do is we can contemplate that story within the framework of our own lives. We can contemplate the energy of the wheel of the year at any point along the wheel, and we can look at that metaphorically and how that connects to our own life. We can also visit specific locations at different points in the wheel. This is actually a really fun activity, is just to go to the same spot in nature and document the changes that you see there through writing, but also through photographs. And there's this particular spot that I have gone to many, many times. And over the course of the Wheel of the Year, 1 year, I went there near every Sabbath and I would take pictures. And it's so fascinating. And it was right by a creek. And so it's so very, very fascinating to see the way that the foliage changes around the area, the different animals that are present. And that's another way that you can kind of connect not only to just the universal energy, but to the earth in particular, because the wheel turns as the earth changes. Okay, so number 4, the fourth way to work with the earth energy or earth element is to go to places where you can experience earth energy. So great places for this are forests, caves, and mountains. And you can go to those places and sit and meditate, commune with the energy there. What I like to do is drop down my roots into the ground when I'm at those areas and meditate. So you could do a grounding tree meditation while you're in those locations. But if you are somewhere, I used to live in the Midwest, and while we can find forests there and maybe some caves, there weren't many mountains in the Midwest. And you may be in a location where you don't have access to these kinds of areas. And you can always visit them through guided meditations, and if you can't do so physically. So you can always Google meditation, journey to the forest, journey to the mountain, journey into the cave, and you will find so many things. And I get asked this question a lot, is how do I pick a meditation that's good? And my best advice is find someone's voice that you resonate with, because at the end of the day, they're the one guiding you through the way that they speak. And that's the most important thing of all, is finding one that will help you drop into the meditative state and really be present. Okay, so idea number 5, work with crystals. So all crystals in general contain the essence of earth energy, but there are ones that are specifically associated with earth as opposed to other elements. So good ones for earth energy are anything red, because red connects to the root chakra, and the root chakra is intimately connected to the earth element. So good stones would be red or black to connect with the root. Garnet, hematite, ruby, bloodstone is one of my favorites for that. In the West, we typically connect the earth element to the color green, in which case you could use any green stones. I like moss agate. I think prehnite is a very good one. It's spelled Prehnite. And I'll be talking about it a little bit later in the Q&A, because someone asked a question where I'm going to bring that up again. Another good one for that's green that's also connected to the earth element would be unakite. I like malachite as well, serpentine. So you have a lot to choose from. So I would just say be guided to whatever stone you're guided to. Kind of pick either a red one or a green one. And then what can you do with it? Well, you can use your crystals during meditation. So that can be as simple as just holding them or placing them on specific parts of the body while you're meditating. You can sleep with the stones under your pillow. I've got in the habit, I think I've got like 10 or so stones that I put under my pillow before I sleep, and I have them in little bags so they don't get lost or anything. You can carry the stones with you on your person, or like I mentioned, you can put them on body parts during healing sessions. So if you wanted to heal, for example, since you've got an ache or pain in the shoulder or something like that, you can place a stone on the shoulder. And then as you meditate, or you just kind of go into a meditative state, just imagine the energy of that stone infusing with your own body's energy. So that is tip number 5, or idea number 5, is working with crystals. Now, number 6 is working with herbs that are connected to the earth element. Now, just like with stones, pretty much all herbalism in general, is an earth based activity or an earth based practice. But there are some plants that are more tied or connected to earth energy than others. So any plants that are food sources are always very much connected to the earth because food is connected to the earth element as well, or and to the root chakra. And so anything that we consume, anything we take in physically, always going to be connected to the earth. Other herbs or plants that would be connected to earth energy would be musky and earthy scents like patchouli or vetiver. Those are two very good ones for the earth, for earth energy. Plants that grow near the ground. So potatoes and any root vegetables, especially, very connected to the root chakra and to the earth element. Ivy, fern, clover, anything that you're going to see growing very close to the ground. Also, plants in their root, stem, or seed form. So, oak, for example, if we had acorns, if we had pine cones from like an evergreen tree, if we have walnut, mandrake, that grows as a root, valerian. So these would all be very good herbs or plants that would be connected to the earth element that you could use. Now, what you could do is you could practice medicinal or magical herbalism, or you can practice a combination of both. And the other thing that's really good when it comes to like earth and plant magic is smell. So, smell is the sense that's connected to the earth element. All of the elements have a primary sense connected to them. And when we get to the water element, that is going to be it's going to be taste. But in the case of the earth element, it's smell. And if you think about it, when beings are born, much of the time, many animals still have their eyes closed, right? And even human infants, when they're first born, their eyes aren't developed. They can't really focus on things the way that older children and adults can. And so they're guided by the sense of smell in order to find the mother's breast, right? So they can get their sustenance. So if you want to connect through to the earth element, using the sense of smell can be very helpful. In which case, your herbalism, if you do it in the form of essential oils, for example, could be very good. Putting oils in diffusers, or putting oils on you. I always put essential oils on me every day to put me into some kind of a specific state that I want. So that is another way that you can work with herbalism, but also really hone in the earth element aspect of it. Okay, now idea number 7 kind of goes along with this. This is planting and gardening. So really get dirt on your hands, right? And there really is almost nothing like growing your own food and really taking pride in your ability to do that. But gardening also can be so grounding because we're down near the earth, near the ground when we do so, especially if you're working on a garden outdoors. But even if you're working with potted plants indoors, just having your hands in the dirt is so grounding and so connecting to the earth element. Now, idea number 8 is also connected to that. Now, this is working with seed or plant magic. So, I'm going to give you an example because Ostara, like I mentioned, is only about a month away. And our coven, we have done many rituals such as this one I'm going to share with you in a moment on Ostara in particular. And so, mainly because this is a time of year that's so connected to planting. So what you can do is you get some seeds. So go down to Home Depot or the local gardening store and get some seeds. And if you want to do a little bit of kind of research before you do all this, pick an intention that you would like to do during your spell casting for this particular spell. So let's say that your intention is healing or health, or let's say your intention is focus, or your intention is love. And just do a little bit of research and find out what plants are connected to those intentions. So when we're talking about intentions, this is where we're really getting into magical herbalism and less into medicinal. A good place to research this is Scott Cunningham's book. He has a book that's called The Encyclopedia of Magical Herbalism. And inside that book, he lists all kinds of herbs and their connections to different intentions. And at the very end of the book, there's an index, and you can just go in, you can find your intention. So suppose it's love, you look up love, and then it's going to show you all the different herbs that are connected to love. So a great resource to have for anybody who loves herbalism, and Scott Cunningham's a great author. So you do a little bit of research, find a plant or an herb that you could grow theoretically in a pot or in your yard, and that is connected to your intention. And then during your ritual, you will take the seeds and you will spend some time in meditative thought and really infuse the seeds with your intention. And that can be as simple as just putting them in your hands and just focusing your intention down into the seeds. And then you'll plant the seeds, and then you'll begin to care for the seeds over the course of the next several weeks until they start to sprout. Now, at that point, if it's a plant that's just going to stay in the container, you just could continue caring for it there, or eventually you could transplant it out into the yard or into a garden if you'd like. But the idea here is that as your plant grows, so does your intention. And so it's just a really great way to use plant and seed magic, especially tied to Ostara because of that connection to the cycles of the season and it being planting time to begin with. So try that out. Ostara is just around the corner, and that would be a great idea for it. And you can use this kind of space in the next month to plan that all out, figure out what your intention is going to be, research some herbs that you could grow to that would be connected to that intention that you could grow in your area, and then put that forward when Ostara comes. Okay, idea number 9, drew a grounding sensory exercise. So this is a great exercise to try. It has a lot of different benefits. So number 1, very grounding and very good at connecting us to the earth element. But on the other, in another kind of side of this, it also is very good for helping us with anxiety, panic, worry. If you're somebody who feels, not only do you feel ungrounded, but you feel really kind of scattered and up in your head, and you're worrying about a lot of things, this exercise can help make you feel more present and help kind of eliminate some of those uncomfortable and negative feelings. So what you do is you get into a relaxed state, and then you're going to you're going to go through a series of 5 different kind of exercises. So the first one is you are going to notice 5 things that you see. So it can be anything. You just look around the room and you will take note of 5 different things you can see. And then from there, we're going to move through the other senses. So you're going to look for 4 things, or you're going to bring into your mind's awareness 4 things that you can feel. So you can touch them, it can be on your own body, it can be on things around you. And then once you do that, you're going to focus on 3 things that you can hear. So really become aware of some of the sounds around you. And you may be very surprised because we really get kind of swept away in our own worlds. And when you really focus on what's going around you, you're going to notice things you've never noticed, especially when it comes to sound. So 3 things you can hear. And then you're going to focus on 2 things you can smell. And then finally on 1 thing that you can taste. And so this grounding sensory exercise can be very good. It's very quick, and it's one that you can use anytime you want to be grounded and present. But especially if you're out and about and you're kind of feeling panic and anxiety, I highly recommend trying this, because not only is it good at connecting to the earth element, but it's good at bringing down, kind of bringing down the central nervous system when it's heightened. All right, idea number 10 is to build an earth altar. Now, the earth altar can go anywhere in your house, but since earth is connected to the direction of north, you could, if it's possible, you could place the altar in the north direction of your house. So if you really wanted to, you could have altars in all the directions for the 4 elements. But what I recommend is, and I think this helps with overwhelm, and this is also my recommendation for working with the chakras, is try to just kind of focus on one at a time when you're first starting out. So just focus on your earth altar, spend some time working with the earth element, and then you can move on to working with water if you'd like. Now, placing the altar in the north is a good idea, if possible. You can get an altar cloth of green or brown or red if you feel like you're more connected to kind of the idea of red and the root chakra. But most witches would probably put a green altar cloth on their north altar. You can place on it stones, crystals, a pentacle. So again, like the paten I showed earlier, you can put one of those on there. Coins, acorns, pine cones, or really anything that comes to you that feels connected to the earth element. And so I recommend just kind of placing that there, and then you could sit at your altar and meditate, or just simply having it present in your house is a reminder that you're working on the earth element this month or this week, or whatever time frame it is. And then finally, number 11, this is all about physical activity and exercise. So it's it's no surprise, exercise is very important to us, and as we get older, it becomes even more important to us. So exercises that are connected, really connected to the earth, are hiking and walking. There's so hiking and walking, they force us to slow down a bit. So when we're on a bike or we're running or we're in a car or vehicles that move faster, the world goes by us very, very quickly. But when we hike and when we walk, it forces us to slow down and hopefully pay attention to what's going on around us. Another thing that you can do is yoga. Now, yoga for the earth element is especially connected to any yoga that's associated with the root chakra. Child's pose is very great. So this is where you get down on your hands and knees, and then you can just fold your belly kind of over your legs. You could look it up if you don't know what child's pose is. Many people will already know what it looks like. But I definitely recommend bringing the forehead down to the ground. It can be very, very grounding. And also bringing the belly down to the ground. So very grounding poses are any belly down pose like locust, bow pose, or cobra. And again, if you don't know what these poses look like, just Google them and you'll find pictures. But the bringing the belly down can be especially grounding. So when you have a lot of anxiety, try that as well. And then there's the pose Tadasana. This is mountain pose. And I recommend with mountain pose, so mountain pose looks like a person is just standing there. And so you would think, well, what kind of a exercise is that? But there's so much more to Tadasana or mountain pose than meets the eye. It's not just about standing. It's about standing and being present like a mountain, really having that, really drawing in that earth energy. And so what I recommend people do is rather than just stand there, really pay attention to your posture. I like to imagine that there's a cord attached to the crown of my head that is kind of lifting it up towards the sky so we don't have the chin tilted downward, and maybe even a cord attached to the heart that lifts the heart up so we don't have that rounding inward that we so often have. And then focusing on the feet and really thinking about your foot and these three spots on the foot. I'm gonna have to show my hand so I don't have to lift up my foot, but the mound underneath the big toe and the mound underneath the little toe, and then right at the heel. And just really think about grounding down into those three spots, and play with your balance too. So move to the left and move to the right and front and back, and feel what it feels like to not have those three spots with completely equal pressure. And then eventually come to a place where you do put the same amount of pressure, or the same amount of kind of energy or focus into those three spots, and then feel what it feels like to truly be standing grounded in Tadasana mountain pose. And then other poses would be any balancing poses. So tree pose is a quintessential and classic root chakra pose because, and one that connects us to the earth element, because balancing forces us to really come into our body, really be aware of all parts of our body, and to root down into one part that isn't normally the only part that touches the ground. Okay, so that was idea number 11, physical activity. So I hope that some of these ideas helped you. So whether you're somebody who already is working readily and regularly with the earth element, or maybe you're somebody who's new and you don't know any of these practices at all. It gives you a lot to think about, a lot of different ideas. And I will be doing a similar episode like this on the water element, the air element, and the fire element very soon as well. But right now, we're going to open this up for the Q&A. So if you are here live, you can definitely put questions in, and I have some questions that were sent to me. I'm going to go ahead and begin with those, while those who are here live can put some questions in. Okay, so the first question comes from Debbie, and she said, how do you balance earth energy with water energy? And so this is a really good question because we talk a lot about the elements as being separate, right? But how about when we're trying to do a combination of elements? So here are some of my thoughts on this. So the first thing I kind of think about are the similarities between these two elements. Both are considered feminine, and that has nothing to do with gender. It's just simply a word that we use to describe this type of energy. So both earth and water are considered feminine energies, and fire and air are considered more masculine energies. Now, earth and water are also receptive energies as opposed to being projective. And so that means they help us receive. So if we want to be in a more receptive state, we can bring more earth and water energy in. Now, both of these are considered cool energies as well, as opposed to the kind of the hot nature or the warm nature of fire and air. But the difference here is that earth is a dry energy, whereas water is a wet energy. So that is where they are going to differ. Now, if we mix them together and we've got too much of these energies and we don't have enough air or fire, what we will get is mud. And that mud will often manifest itself in our lives in things like depression or sluggishness. So if a person's feeling really depressed and really sluggish and really having a hard time moving, I would definitely go to the doctor and have some blood work done so that we can rule out any physical causes. But there can also be energetic causes, which could be we got to get the earth and the water energy moving. Maybe we've got too much of that, or we're just not getting it moving enough. Um, so now what happens is that water allows earth to flow a little bit more. So sometimes earth can get really, it's really good and grounding, but it can get kind of stuck and stagnant. And earth helps us move, or I'm sorry, water helps us move that energy just a little bit more. So so what could you do though if you wanted to try to balance these two energies within you? So my first recommendation would be working with the root chakra and the sacral chakra together. They are next to each other in the energetic body, which means that they're connected. So any chakra in your body, so while we do work on them separately, especially when we're first starting out and we're start trying to understand and learn the different chakras, we work on them separately. But they all are connected, all interconnected, all seven, but especially the ones that are closest to each other are very much connected. So if you can find a way to work with root chakra and sacral chakra energy together, that is going to help you balance the earth and the water energy within you. And another thing that you can do is visit places where both of those energies are very prominent. So a good place like I think about is the beach. If you can get to a beach, you have the sand, and so you have that grounded earth energy there, but then you also have the movement of the water. And walking barefoot on a beach can be a very good way to connect to both of those elements, earth and water. But that would be I think my first starting point would be trying to work with the two chakras first and then see how that goes. And then if this doesn't answer the question, if there's like more that you specifically about it, Debbie, you can just let me know, and you can post below the video and I will elaborate on anything else if there's something specific you want to know about. But that would be my best recommendation. Work with root and root and sacral chakra together. Okay, the next question is from Christina, and she said, "What do you do when you feel yourself surging with with magic and energy, and you feel connected from everything else?" So, so I think that this is not an uncommon problem. I think I've heard many people who've come through my circles over the years mention similar things. Now, usually this happens when there is like a great activation of the upper chakras and the upper energy centers. And so this is not uncommon for people who are on a spiritual path. Um, but I should say, and that energy is great because it helps us connect to our higher gifts. You're probably feeling very connected to your guides, perhaps more connected to the universe, feeling more inspired to do spell work and magical practices. But what happens is if we're always in that energy, we eventually deplete our energy if we don't have some grounding too. And so, what I would recommend, so it's kind of twofold here, is the first thing I would do is I would kind of stay in that energy when it's there and see if you can do something useful with it. So that could be spells, rituals, it could be magical workings, it could be journeying, meditations, connecting to your guides, divination, um, automatic writing, anything that is connected to those higher energy centers. Stay in the energy and see if you could do something useful with it. But Christopher Penczak, he said in his book, and I believe it was the inner, I think it was the outer temple of witchcraft, though it may have been the inner temple of witchcraft. But in one of those books, he talks about ritual energy and the kind of that spiritual energy, and it's not the kind of energy that we can stay in long term. And what happens is that we have it and it feels good and we kind of want to stay in it, but it's energy that's meant for specific purposes, like ritual, magical workings, connecting to the universe. But it's not for us to be in all the time, because when we are, we do so to the detriment of the lower energy centers. And so, what he recommends is that you find a way, like when you're in that space, once you've kind of passed through it, you've done the workings that you're going to do, find a way to ground. You need to find a way to come back down. So it can be any of the practices that I already talked about in this video, something that will refill your energy back up. It can be as simple as placing your forehead down to the ground, putting some salt on your tongue if you're really elevated in kind of like an activated state. But ultimately, we do need to find a way to ground down, or you're probably going to burn out a lot of your energy. Um, so that would be my advice is try to ground down. And then the fact that you said you're kind of feeling disconnected from everything else, what I suspect is when you start doing some grounding and you start working more with the earth element, you will find that you feel more connected, because that's just simply a byproduct of working with the root chakra. All right, I hope that helps. And then Junior said, he said, when do I practice shadow work? And he said, I would like to know more about energy and healing work for a beginner. And then Kurt had also mentioned that he wanted to learn more about energy flow as well. He'd become very interested in it. So to answer, let's start with the first question about shadow work. So when is a good time for shadow work? You can do shadow work anytime. It doesn't really make any difference when you do it. But there is a time in the lunar cycle where we feel a little bit more pulled inward. And so for those who are, especially those who are beginning out on a shadow work journey, they may find they're more receptive and open to this kind of work during the waning half of the cycle. In particular, this last 7 days or the waning crescent. And then that energy kind of amplifies when we hit the last 3 days or the last 72 hours of the lunar cycle and enter the balsamic moon. So that is a great time for people to do prompting exercises for shadow work, get some shadow work prompts. Any other exercise I share a lot in our Shadow Seekers membership, a lot of shadow work exercises. But that's when people can kind of do the prompting. And then what people will find though is that when they've done quite a bit of shadow work and they've kind of been on the path for a while, they may just have spontaneous shadow work sessions at any old time. So sometimes I'll have them on the full moon, and that's always, I remember at first that was very surprising to me, because I came from the school of thought that shadow work always happens in the more receptive half of the cycle during the waning moon. But when you do the work, it can happen anytime. You just get the messages anytime. And so what a shadow work session essentially looks like is these are the aha moments when all of a sudden you realize you have kind of a spotlight shown on an aspect of you that's unhealed, that perhaps you thought was healed, it's still there. Or you have this revelation of something that's always puzzled you or you didn't have an answer to about yourself, and then all of a sudden you realize it. And so those things will happen more and more often when you practice the prompting. But what I would recommend to someone who's first starting out, when we come into the waning crescent moon, those last 7 days of the cycle, look for some prompts to work on, do a little bit of shadow work during that time, and then see how that progresses your path. Now, to answer the question about energy work, I will be doing a full episode on energy very soon, within the next few weeks. But I do want to share with you a little exercise to tide you over until then. And I'll be talking about this exercise a little bit more in that episode as well. So this exercise is the ball of energy exercise. It's a very great exercise to learn how to feel energy. So very good for beginners who've never felt energy, but it's a good for people who've been doing this for a long time as well. It just sort of validates and confirms all of this stuff that we believe. So what you do is you're going to rub your hands together, build up a little bit of kinetic energy in between your hands, get a little bit of heat there. And I usually do this for 15 to 20 seconds, just get some good energy built up. And then I would close my eyes here. And when you stop, you may feel energy in your hands. So right now I can feel the energy kind of pulsing in my palms. And then just imagine sending that energy and forming it into a ball and see what happens when you play around with it. So, like if you try to push your hands together to make that ball a little bit smaller, what you may find is that they don't really move the way that they should through just air that there's nothing in, right? And, um, and then what you can do is you can play around with this and move and make it bigger. And then what some people do is with your eyes closed, you imagine visualizing it to be different colors, like green or red, and then you can imagine visualize sending the energy to people. And then when it feels like there's nothing, like it's kind of dissipated, you want to feel it again. You just rub your hands again, get the heat built up, get the kinetic energy built up, and then you just try it again. And you can make it different shapes and different colors, but it's a very good exercise for people who are first starting out and want to be able to feel energy, but also for people who practice for a while and just want that validation. So that is the energy ball exercise, but I'll be sharing more about energy, like I said, in a couple of weeks and in a future episode as well. And then we have a question from Angela. She said, there are so many crystals, 40 plus for spiritual awakening alone. How many do I actually need? Please help. I hear you. You go into a crystal shop and there are hundreds, right? And you look them up online, and any intention you look up, there's got to be half a dozen to a dozen listed or more. So here is my advice to somebody kind of looking to just have an all-around crystal collection that they can do their energy work with. So I recommend that everybody have a piece of selenite. Selenite is a very good crystal for cleansing. It's so cleansing on its own that you can actually get a stick of selenite and you can place other crystals on it overnight. And that will help to eliminate any negative energies that those crystals have picked up. You don't have to do anything else, just kind of place them on the selenite. So selenite is very good for cleansing, and so that's why I recommend that everybody have a piece of that. Now, I also recommend that everyone have a black crystal of some kind as well, something that will purge negativity or dispel negativity when you feel that it's around you. My favorite is obsidian, but onyx is also good, and black tourmaline. So I'd recommend having one of those three. And then what I would do is I would get one crystal each for each of the 7 chakras. And so you can do this through color. So for example, the root chakra is associated with the color red. So I would get a red stone. Bloodstone is very good. And also, by the way, black stones are also connected to the root. So hematite is also connected to the root. Ruby, garnet is one of my favorites for the root chakra. Sacral chakra, I love carnelian, but you can get anything orange. Jasper, very good orange jasper. Solar plexus, I love yellow calcite, but you can get anything yellow for that one. The heart is associated with the color green, so you can get anything green. I love serpentine and malachite, but moss agate, forest agate, anything green will work here. The throat chakra, lapis lazuli, is my absolute favorite for the throat. Sodalite is a more affordable alternative to that, but anything blue, a dark blue color, is very good for the throat chakra. Third eye, really can't go wrong with amethyst. I think amethyst is a great stone to have in all collections. So that's very good for the third eye, but you can also find other stones that are blue or indigo in color or purple. I really like blue kyanite also for the third eye as well. And then for the crown chakra, I would get a piece of quartz. So if you got a stone for each of the 7 chakras, you would know that you had a stone to balance each of your energy centers, and then you have a selenite for cleansing, and you have some kind of a black stone for dispelling negativity. And then if you would like, I really like prehnite, Prehnite. It is a stone for dreaming. So if you're interested in kind of working with your dreams, I love a piece of prehnite underneath the pillow. And then another stone that some of us in Shadow Seekers have been working with is the Shiva Lingam. So Shiva Lingam, Lingam. And the Lingam stone is a stone that is known to balance all of the chakras at once, but it's particularly connected to the sacral chakra. But various members in Shadow Seekers have them, and I've been using it every night for some time. I've been working with my sacral chakra, so I place it on kind of my low abdomen, and then I meditate with it. So that is also a good stone if you want to try. They say it's a stone for kind of spiritual balance. It kind of helps us elevate. So great stone to have. And then from there, I would just, what stones are you drawn to? If you have a specific intention at some point, then you can go get a stone connected to that intention, add it to your collection. But if you got, like I said, these 9 or 10 stones, it would cover all your bases for now. So I hope that helps. And then finally, Melissa said, how do I practice my craft when I'm in a flare up and I'm so inflamed I can't move much? She said, I have rheumatoid arthritis, and so a lot of days I can't do much, but I want to do more. Okay, so first of all, I'm so sorry to hear that. I imagine how hard it would be to have some kind of a spiritual practice when you're not sure how you'll feel physically day to day. But the good news is there's a lot that you can do in your practice that could keep you connected and could keep you in a regular practice even when you have flare-ups on these specific days. And I suspect that some of these practices could even help ease some of those flare-ups. So, different things you can do are mantras. Mantras are very easy. So, sometimes we think mantras are affirmations, and they're not quite the same thing. Affirmations tend to be things that we create, um, and so you can use those as well, but they tend to be like, I am full of love and forgiveness. And so they're just things that we're going to repeat. They're typically in English. Whereas mantras are often in other languages, in particular Sanskrit, because of its vibrational nature. And so you can find different mantras like, for example, the mantra Om Gam Ganapataye Namaha. So this is a mantra that calls in the god Ganesha, but when people don't work with the deity or don't work with deities at all, they can use this mantra to simply remove obstacles from their path or call in the remover of obstacles as an energy. It's a good mantra for the root chakra, Om Gam Ganapataye Namaha. And so you can repeat those mantras over and over. You can get a set of mala beads to keep track, and you can. There's 108 beads in a mala strand, and so you could repeat the mantra 108 times, but you don't have to. You can repeat the mantra 20 times. It's all your own practice. But mantras can be something great on a day that you don't feel like you've got any energy or you don't feel like you can move. You can work with crystals. And so you can meditate with your crystals. You can place them on various parts of your body. If you're having a particular flare up in a specific part of the body, you can place a crystal on it to kind of infuse that area with energy. Rheumatoid arthritis is connected to the root chakra. And so you could get stones that are connected to the root, any stones that are red. I love like garnet for that. You can do mudras. So, mudras are hand gestures that connect us to specific energies. So, we're talking about the earth element in this particular episode. And the earth element mudra is where you take the thumb and the ring finger and you bring them together. And so, just making a mudra during your meditation, or perhaps when you're sitting and doing the mantras, this can be a way to be in your spiritual practice, because just this gesture alone immediately is bringing earth energy into your energy field. You can pull a card daily or a couple cards daily. You can do breath work. So even when you're having the flare-ups, the breath work can absolutely be a possibility for you. You can do grounding breath work, which kind of slows you down, or slows the system down, where you have a longer exhale than an inhale. And you can also do activating breath work, where like breath of fire, where you're breathing much more quickly and you're kind of bringing in the fire element. Some kundalini energy exercises could even work for you. So if you can be seated for a time, you can do an exercise. I showed this a couple of weeks ago, where you inhale as you turn to the left and you exhale as you turn to the right, and you just go through this exercise like this, and it can really get some of the energy that's moving that might be stuck and stagnant in the solar plexus and in the heart space. And then there's another one where you lift your shoulders up to your ears on the inhale, and then drop them on the exhale. Inhale and exhale, inhale, exhale. So even if you're having a flare up, you might still be able to do Kundalini energy exercises. That's going to get your energy moving. Um, Yoga, there's some yoga not recommended for people who have rheumatoid arthritis or are having flare-ups. So like, for example, you want to avoid hot yoga, you want to avoid vinyasa yoga, you want to avoid power yoga. But what you might try is yin yoga and restorative yoga. So those types of yoga are where you're lying down in specific positions, or maybe seated in specific positions, and you're in them for several minutes at a time. And there are people who have reported good results doing yin yoga and restorative yoga who have rheumatoid arthritis. Hatha yoga is also good on the days that you feel like you do have ability to move. Hatha yoga is much, much slower than vinyasa or power yoga, and you kind of move slowly through the poses, hold them for a breath or two or three, and then move into another one. Very gentle, very grounding practice. Hatha is one of my favorites. So that's an option. Meditation and journaling can be done anytime, even when you're not feeling good physically. And then mental intention setting during your spell work. So you don't actually have to do anything physical at all to do a spell. It can all be created in your mind. Create the intention in your mind. You can raise energy through breath work, and then you can send the intention out into the universe or to a person. So I think my biggest advice to you would be, see if you can create a handful of practices that you like. You can use some from my list and come up with others on your own, and then have them sort of like ranked according to how possible they are to do when you're in various levels of a flare up. And so perhaps when you're really physically, you're in a lot of pain, maybe there's only maybe it's just meditation, right? Or maybe it's pulling a card, or candle gazing. I forgot to mention that too. You can gaze at a candle flame and to do a meditation that way. And then maybe the exercises that require a little bit more moving, maybe those are on the days that you feel more physically well. But what I would do is I would have one practice that you are always going to do. It's a very simple practice. So for me, it's this mantra that I listen to for 10 minutes and I sing it because it's set to music. And it's just this one, even if it's on day and I can't do anything else, I will always be able to do that practice. So maybe you can find a practice like that. And so even on the worst days, you can still do that one. And that will help you feel like you've got a regular practice going. But make sure that that practice, whatever that one is very, very simple to do. And then, add in the other practices as you feel called to them, and depending on what your body feels like at that time. So I hope that helps answer that question. But if you want a little bit more advice, just message below, and you can ask specific questions as well. Okay, so it doesn't look like we have any questions for the Q&A in the chat today. So in case you still have some lingering questions, drop them in. I'm just going to tell you what's coming up next. So on 2/28, next Wednesday, in place of Ask Aislin live here on Facebook, I'm going to be doing a Zoom workshop. It will be fed live to our Body Mind Witchcraft page, and it will be posted, the replay will be posted in the Body Mind Witchcraft group and on our YouTube. But if you want to come live with me, you can be on the Zoom. This is a full-length workshop called Journey of Shadow and Light. It teaches you how to combine shadow work with energy work and the chakra system. And so it's a great workshop. I taught it back in September. If you took it back then, join us again. I teach it a little bit different every time. It's always good to solidify the information by hearing it a second time as well. But if you are new to this and have never taken this workshop before, you're in for a treat. It's a really great workshop. So I hope you can join us 2/28. Look for an invite here in the Facebook group. If you're on our mailing list, you will also receive information about it, including the Zoom link and how you can join. If you're not on our mailing list, definitely check below the video and there will be a link where you can get the Witch's Guide to Shadow Work. And, um, and that will also put you on our mailing list, so you'll make sure you get all the information about the upcoming workshop. Then on 3/6, I'm going to be doing an episode on shadow work as we get closer to the dark moon. And then on 3/13, I believe I'm going to be coming back and doing the element of water. We'll do a whole episode on that. And then we have an energy episode coming up in the future. So a lot of great things. And then I just wanted to mention that our membership Shadow Seekers is opening up. It's opening up after the workshop next week. So the workshop, at the very end of it, you can learn more about our Shadow Seekers, Shadow Work and Energy Work membership, learn about the features. Hopefully we'll have some members. We may have some current members on there sharing some of their experiences, and it'll help you decide if the membership is right for you. So that will be opening up right after that workshop on the 28th, and we're going to be open till I think about 3/7, so there's about a week to decide if you want to join us this round. And that is all that I have for tonight. All right, so I hope you enjoyed the episode. If you are watching this back in replay, make sure to put a heart or a thumbs up any time during this video. It just helps us get this out to the feed of more people. And if you are watching back on YouTube later, make sure to subscribe to the channel. And you'll make sure you won't miss any future episodes. All right, until next time, blessed be.